Hey guys, this is Carlos Phoenix. How are you? This is a new show that we're putting together with me and Zio Mata Medina, and we do have some special guests. But before we have the special guests, let's have our special intro. All right, so today we have a great show today lined up for you today. We have we're going to be talking about real estate. We talk about credit. We talk about what to do when you first start looking for a house. But today we have Trivedi Law Group. We have Nehal Trivedi from the law group live, and he's right now with Ziamana. So, hi guys. Oh, there we go. What's up? How are you?
We're doing great, thank you.
Excellent. So I'm going to let Ziamana start, and I'll let you guys have a small chat.
So yes, I got my hair curly today because it's raining over here like crazy. It's a little cold, but we're still working really hard. And I wanted to bring an attorney of his stature because he's very experienced. He has a long experience. He does not just residential, but he also does commercial, transactional. He helps businesses as well. So his experience is very extensive. So I wanted to have that. Today we're going to focus a little bit more on the first time home buyers, but I also want him to give a little bit of all the other things that he does in the.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. I appreciate it, Zia. Basically, my law firm does a lot of real estate, residential and commercial. I do a lot of business closings, a lot of leases, buying, selling businesses, also liquor licenses. But obviously, the residential closings and business closings, that's the most of it.
Great. And now, when somebody's buying a house for the first time, I know that they usually go to the loan officer, which would be me, or the realtor. And then after that, sometimes they don't know the steps that take place. So what are some of the steps that they could be looking at?
Well, first of all, they need to do an inspection on the house, right?
Yes.
So once they make an offer, the offer has been accepted. Usually I get a phone call right after it saying that my offer has been accepted. What would I do next? I said, well, do an inspection on the house. Once the inspection is done, also get a pre-approval letter from the mortgage lender like yourself. This way it gives them a little bit more of confidence. And then once the inspection is done, everything is okay. Usually I get a contract from the seller's attorney. In fact, I just got a contract on a house in Rico Park today. And then I contact the client and we move the process along.
And how long does it take in between the time that they get, because a lot of people get antsy, they don't know how long it takes. How long does it take from?
Well, it depends. Usually in the summertime, people want to do it very quickly because they want to get into the house before the summer is over so that they can put the kids in school, things like that. But usually it takes anywhere between 30 to 60 days for the approval of the mortgage, to get the commitment, do an appraisal on the property, and actually closing on the property.
So you guys want to make sure that you are represented correctly, because experience is everything. You want to make sure that the attorney has that experience. You could ask questions to your attorney to better understand your transaction. Don't feel shy. That's what we're here for, to answer your questions. What are some of the things that they should look out for?
The home inspection is very important. Also, a lot of times initially I tell a prospective purchaser to tell them residential broker with regard to putting down payment. So, now the prices of homes are $800, $900, $1 million. So you want to put down 5% down, or maybe a specific amount. So this way you don't expose yourself to a greater liability. Hopefully everything goes smooth and you're able to get a mortgage and close. A lot of times it doesn't happen. So you want to have less deposit. And again, I mean, on a house inspection is kind of important. Making sure that your bank statements for mortgages are important. 2-3 months of statement, 2 years of tax returns, things are pretty aligned properly, so that when you're presenting things to the mortgage broker, they're able to get you an approval letter as quickly as possible.
Yes, you want to make sure that they submit everything to underwriting and you get pre-approval from underwriting. That's the best bet. And what are things that they should look for? I know some of the states, and this is going all over, it's going online. So I know some states, they don't necessarily need an attorney, like New Jersey. And I have a lot of clients that go to Jersey, although I don't recommend it. I always say, even if it's not necessary, you always want it, because you always want to make sure you're protected. That's what the attorney does. They protect you. What are some of the steps in those scenarios?
Pretty much the same stuff. I mean, I know in New Jersey, a lot of times the broker actually initially does the contract. The parties do sign it, and then the contract comes to the lawyer, and the lawyers basically communicate with each other in order to finalize the contract. In Florida, same thing. I mean, I've done properties in Florida where the contract is prepared by the broker. Again,
that's risky if it's the same broker that's listing the property.
Yeah.
Because there's a conflict there.
Yeah, but at the same time, what I usually request, and again, hopefully the client has already reached out to me prior to them signing anything or while they're looking at the property. So there is some communication that is occurring prior to them actually a final price and moving forward. So I think that's important to have a dialogue, have some communication throughout the process rather than coming afterwards, right? So you need to have a good team of real estate broker, mortgage broker, an attorney, a house inspector. These are some of the key players in the game, and you need to be, not be too concerned about the office hours and whatnot. They have to be accessible and available, and to provide you with notice. And so this way, because everybody's very anxious, right? Your family has been looking for a house for a long time. Finally, they found something, and now they want to move the process along as quickly as possible. So you want to make sure that you've already spoken to a mortgage broker, you've already spoken, or at least get a conversation going with an attorney. Obviously, you're already dealing with a residential broker. So I mean, you want to make a right decision, throughout the process.
Yeah. And how about title?
Well, once the contract is signed, today I think we got a contract that was signed, and as soon as we get the contract, we order title right away. Usually I wait until the seller's attorney has the contract sent over to us. And as soon as the contract is signed, we immediately order title report. While the process of mortgage is going through, the title comes in within about 10 days, 14 days. Of course, excuse me. So the title will, on its own, the search will come in, we'll evaluate it, we'll look at it, we'll make sure that there are no liens, judgments, open violations. If there are, we'll contact the seller's attorney. And then again, we're just kind of reviewing the process while the mortgage, is being approved.
So just to make sure, you need these things in place. So you have to prepare yourself. Those are part of the closing costs. You want to make sure that the place is clear of liens and judgments, and the seller should take care of those before the sale, if not at the closing. And what's the rule of thumb from them liking a house to how many days they should give themselves to do an inspection, and how many days should they give themselves to do a contract?
As soon as the binder or the seller's seller has agreed on an offer, usually there will be a binder that will be signed with the broker, residential broker. An inspection should be done within 5 days. Once the inspection is done, everything is satisfactory. If there isn't, there could be some back and forth discussion about repairs or credit. Um, and usually once an inspection is done, I usually get a copy of the contract. You know, I mean, the intention is there that the buyer wants to buy a house. The seller obviously wants to sell the house. So when an inspection is done, usually I do get a contract from the seller. I just simply wait until the inspection is done. So usually between 5-10 days. You know, I mean, in Jericho, in Hicksville, certain areas that are very demanding, you know, the process has to move very quickly.
Yeah. I want to close in like 45 days the latest. If it's 45 days, they're already pissed. They want to close in a month.
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody's very anxious to close. Usually the brokers will come and pick up the contract. You know, they want to make sure before Christmas, maybe the closing takes place, so they get their Christmas bonus. So things like that. You know, time efficiency is not a problem nowadays with emails and texting and WhatsApp and things like that. So it moves pretty fast.
Yeah. How about the earnest deposit or the down payment that they put on contract? Because a lot of people don't realize they have to put some money with the offer, and then they have to put the down payment with contract.
Well, depending on the price of the house, normally the thumb rule is that you have to put 10% down on a contract. I mean, again, I prefer that as the price of homes have gone up, I prefer it to be 5% in order to limit the liability, right? Just in case, because lawyers are worst case scenario people, right? So around 5. Depending on the qualification of the buyer, I mean, I've seen as low as $10,000 on a house for $300,000-$400,000. Sometimes the seller doesn't have multiple offers, so they'll accept $10,000 as a deposit. So really, I mean, it's case by case basis. I just had a deal last week where it was for $750,000 house, and we put $75,000 because it was in an area where the seller, you know, insisted upon 10%. So we, sometimes we do, but the rule of thumb is 10%.
Yeah, and so that definitely has to do with the type of loan that you get, because if you're getting an FHA, it's 3.5%. If you're getting a conventional, you can put 10%, but you still have a MIP. If you put 20%,
no, hold on now. Before you go into terminology,
mortgage insurance premium. Yeah, I was going to go into that now. So that is when you put less than 20%. There is a mortgage insurance that has to account for anything. Let's say you default on your loan, that mortgage insurance kicks in and covers for you. So if you put 20% down because there's enough equity, you don't have to pay that monthly mortgage insurance. And that could be anywhere from $100 to $300-$400. So you have to make sure, a lot of people don't explain that to the buyers. You have to make sure you account for that. Because it comes as a surprise. I'm surprised how many people don't realize that that's one of the things that take place. So if you want to not have that, then you want to put 20%. So that depends, but anywhere from 3.5 to 20% figure.
Yes, I mean, the rule of thumb is, I mean, I bought a house. I put in 30 to 35% down just because I wanted my monthly payments to be lower, because I know that I would be locked in for the next 30 years that I would have to pay, right? Yeah. So you try to squeeze as much as possible. Again, in the commercial property also, the rule of thumb is 30 to 35% unless it's owner-operated, owner-occupied, by the way. But yeah, the initial deposit, contract deposit could be 5-10%, and then 20% is a good rule of thumb in order to avoid the additional PMI. Yeah. The more you put down, the better it is. Or in this case, now the interest rate's kind of low, you may not want to put down all much. So this way, just take the benefit of actually having lower interest rates.
Yes, yeah. So that depends if you want to put less down payment and have that money for investment, which is another option, and you could carry the mortgage insurance, then you should do that, because nothing's better than having that money available for investment as well. But you have to definitely know what you're doing. You don't want to lose your money. So that's why we're here, to give you information, bring you information on investments as well. That's going to be future ones that we're going to do for you. And what, if you had to give one piece of advice to somebody who's never done this before, what would that be?
Enjoy the process. It is a process for from I guess searching for a home to about 60 days or 90 days. It is a long investment. It is something for you and your family. So don't go beyond what you can afford and what you can. Don't try to reach for the star. Although you do need to squeeze and try to collect and gather. For example, I did I liquidated my IRA in order to put down more on down payment because the interest rate was low.
Mm-hmm.
So certain things you need to squeeze, but nevertheless, it's a process. But it's a dream come true for a lot of people to buy their own first home. So it should be a pleasant experience.
And right now is the best time to do this because the rates are at historically low, and real estate is a good investment. Prices are very, very good. And, this is nothing better than putting the money that you pay every month into somebody else's mortgage into your own pocket. So there's nothing better than that, because you feel accomplished. You really feel like, this is mine. I'm paying this, and it's for me, and something in the future. So that's something good to consider.
All right. So now, of course, we have a little bit of an audience. So I'm going to put up one of their questions, and let's see how. Are you able to see that?
Yes.
So, okay. So what goes into a well-done assessment for a bank? Looking to do a home equity type thing. I've been in the house 22 years of 30-year mortgage.
Okay. So the home equity, for that, you have to really understand the product and understand that is only for 10 years. So it's like a temporary Band-Aid. You pay interest only on it. And in 10 years, and also you have to be able to qualify for the highest, what it could be the highest interest rate for it. So if you have a lot of expenses, if your credit score is in the mid 6s, it might not really qualify. They're very stringent about that. And the banks that actually offer that are service banks like Chase, TD Bank. Where you bank, that's where you could find the line of credit, the credit unions. They're big on that. So one thing to understand is they could foreclose on your home if you don't pay. So for a smaller amount that you're getting for this equity line, they could foreclose if you don't pay the interest, if you don't make that payment. And a lot of people, they experience is that they're making a payment and they think they're paying it off, and they're not. They're paying just interest. And in 10 years, it freezes, and they experience like a balloon payment where they take a whatever interest rate in the future, they have to pay that plus the fully amortized of your balance. So let's say you took out 90 and you've been paying for 10 years only interest. Guess what? You still owe 90. So a lot of people call me with crying and everything because they experienced this balloon payment all of a sudden. So you have to be careful with those. They're great if you're doing investments and you're paying it right away. They're great for that. But you also have to understand that every so often they could run your credit and check your circumstance. And if you lose your job, or if you don't have the same income, or if something changes in your financial circumstance, they could freeze the account. So it's happened to some people where if they lose their job, all of a sudden they experience that balloon payment, like they have to pay this because of the change in financial circumstance. So that's something that could also, it's good to know to read the fine print, right?
Yeah.
That's why you have him here. Also read the fine print. I know it's boring sometimes, but it's very, very necessary that you understand the product. Like I said, it's really good for investments. Have you had any experience with equity lines?
Yeah, sure. Like you said, a great investment opportunity to have a line of credit. I think everybody should have it. It's sometimes very easy with some banking institution. And again, like you said, you could be making those payments, but you're making payments towards interest only. So when you're actually making payments towards principal, you actually need to tell them that I'm making it towards principal only. But I think it's a great tool just to have.
Yeah, it's sort of like having a credit card for a lot less.
Yes.
So it is really good if you qualify for it. You got to make sure that your credit is good, because they are very stringent on those, especially if you have a first lien and they're taking second lien. So they want to make sure that you're going to be able to afford all your expenses, your first mortgage, and this one at its highest. So they're very difficult to get, but if you have a good credit and you have the equity, you could certainly get it, and it beats the credit cards for sure.
So it's good to take out line of credit for kitchen renovations and bathroom, but not for vacations.
Yes, take it for investments that's gonna pay you back.
Yes.
More than, like, if the line of credit is 3 to 5%, something that's gonna pay you 10%, definitely recommend it. Thumbs up. But make sure you are well informed in your investment, because the last thing you want to do is take a line of credit or take any kind of loan and be stuck with a loan and you lose your money in an investment. So you got to make sure that you understand what you're doing in that sense. But renovations is good because you're putting the money into your own place, which will then raise the value. But just understand that if you, like he said, you're making payments, make sure you say that it's towards the balance. Otherwise, you're not doing anything to that line of credit.
So obviously, being a real estate lawyer, there's a lot of different stories you've experienced. There's a lot of different things to think about outside of just when you first want to buy a house. So an example would be, you're in the house, you've been there for a little bit, and now the relationship may not be working out. Husband and wife want to split up, and now the house is smack in the middle of it all. Is there anything that you can kind of advise on those type of scenarios?
Well, stop paying mortgage on it immediately until the problem is resolved. You have to keep on making payments on the mortgage, unless you want your credit to be ruined, or if you in the future you want to buy a house, foreclosure, your credit score going down, that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Somebody's living in the house, the expenses could be worked out, could be adjusted, whether the husband pays it or the wife pays it. Did you ask me a question whether they're already separated or they're still living in the house? Because
I'm just creating a scenario so that people who might, be too afraid of you asking a question like that may have a little inkling of what to kind of consider. So an example, husband and wife, they're maybe started discussing possibly separating. So we want to get the money.
They just separate.
Yeah, usually
they don't make a plan that we're gonna separate. One just.
Okay, so I have.
Yeah, usually. Although there are some few far in between cases of people that actually are amicable about it, and they say, "Honey, we separate, but for the kids' sakes, let's work it out." But for the most part,
I'll give you an example. So I have at least 2 or 3 different friends who are in this part of their lives where there's a possible separation. They know things aren't going well. They've already kind of hinted and discussed it, and then they're not arguing. They're not, ready to kill each other. But I do understand that there are scenarios like that, and they want to, they're starting to prepare, thinking, well, there's a lot of things to prepare for. There's a family, there's the house, there's the car, there's all these different things. And property, sometimes becomes a weird argument. So that's where I'm coming from. So what kind of thoughts, what kind of things should they prepare for, and at what point do they say they start going to a lawyer like yourself about something like that?
I guess I'm sure that they must have already gone to a lawyer prior to them having discussions, because money is a big factor, right? So the income and expenses are they're thinking of it and debating on it. So not only homes, but they're looking into credit card expenses, school expenses, and things like that for the kids. So of course, mortgage expenses is a big expense for a lot of people. Um, Whether or not they're living together or one is separated, one has to think that somebody has to pay it, regardless of if they're there or not. Another scenario could be, a time period where they're looking to sell the house, right? I mean, you can put the house for sale, get the price, and pretty much both parties start living in a rented apartment. So this way, they can use that sale of the price in order to buy another house or a co-op or a condo or whatever it is. Um, so those are the things that I would start, thinking and putting numbers on a piece of paper and working towards it.
Yeah, and I would add to that that it also depends how long they've been together. It depends whose house was it originally. It depends who's been paying the pay, who's been making payments. I mean, all those things are taken under consideration. At the end of the day, if you have kids, uh, unfortunately, let's say you've been with somebody for over 5 years and you have kids in common, unfortunately, that asset, even if you, let's say you bought it a year before you got married, that asset becomes a marital asset, right?
It's gonna get talked
It's
about.
going to get talked about. It's going to get potentially split, potentially. If there's more than one property, that's another option where you could say, well, I keep this house. So when there's more than one property, it could be a better scenario. But when it's just one property and everybody kind of wants that, it could go either way. So most likely they would split those assets. Um,
So just to kind of add, because I want to make sure that people understand the types of things and scenarios that they would need a real estate lawyer for. So granted, there's always the purchase of the house, but can you give us other scenarios of how that people approach you and use your services?
If they're refinancing it, a lot of times in foreclosure also, they're having difficulty times making payments when the market, maybe we're not really in decline right now, but I mean, certain areas, if there is a little bit of a decline in price, they have maybe recently bought it two years ago, and maybe they're not happy with the payments that they're making. They can they can stop paying on the mortgage. They can do a short sale. I get involved in short sale as well. Um, so those are the scenarios that I get involved in.
Yeah, it depends on the outcome, though. Depends on where you are financially, because that has a big play into it. Because if you stop paying your mortgage, obviously your credit's going to get ruined. I'm not a big fan of bankruptcies uh, because they stay on your credit, and you can't, especially if you're getting a divorce, if you're going to want to buy something as soon as you can. But when you have a bankruptcy, it stops you from getting a place for 2 years. So you have to know that. And, sometimes you got to bite the bullet now so that you can have a better outcome. But every scenario is so different. That's why a consultation would be probably the best bet. But you want to make sure that you talk to an attorney, get a consultation, find out what your steps are, what your options are. Um, there's a lot of different options. Banks are a little more lenient sometimes to work out modifications so that they could actually lower your rate for a certain amount of time, give you a break. Sometimes they're willing to do that. It doesn't happen. They don't like to advertise that. It doesn't happen that often, but banks are a little more lenient with that. So rather than they're not going to do it if you're paying everything perfectly, of course. But there's different options, and definitely speaking out, seeking uh, consultations, talking to people definitely helps you out to get to know what options. Sometimes you're in the middle of a divorce and you can't think. So talking to other people that can look at your situation from the outside and be able to advise you, okay, you can do A, B, C, or D. Don't just talk to one person, talk to a lot of different people, because that's going to open up your mind to know what are the options, what are the best way of tackling this. What do you think? You don't really do divorce, you do more of the commercial.
Yeah, no, I mean,
for investors.
in fact, I had a friend that they were going through a divorce where the wife was actually living in the house, and then eventually she decided to stop making payments on it because she couldn't afford to pay $4,000 of mortgage because there are expenses with the kids. And the father, once he moves out, I mean, he's not contributing because now he's looking out for his interest.
Of course.
So it's a tough situation.
Sticky
Yes,
situation.
yes. So hopefully the mortgages payments are less, where you're able to, if you were to move out, and that's how you have to look at it, right? If you stayed somewhere else, you would have to pay a rental of $1,500, $2,000, whatever it is. So rather than having somewhere else, you're actually still staying in your house.
A lot of people are doing that.
Yeah, yeah, and you're figuring out your situation. Maybe you'll keep the house. Who knows?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing.
The thing is to have an open conversation with that person, especially if you have kids. Try by all means to work it out one way or another, because it really gets it could get really bad.
But I think the main thing is, again, I'm big favor of making sure and maintaining your credit, because I've always done that from the very beginning. So, but you want to keep your credit good, that in the event that life has its ups and downs, and then again you'll come back in a few more years, and if your score is good and your credit is good, you're able to get back on your feet much quicker and easier. Whereas if you stop making payments, it just creates more issues.
Yeah. So if you're in that sticky situation, try by all means to work it out. If you have to get a second job to kind of, bite the bullet for now until everything gets worked out. There's a lot of different things that people could do to try to work things out in that sense. But think about your kids first. That's the main thing. Think about your kids first. Because
Right.
a lot of people are in this scenario and they're tackling and then they're just fighting back and forth. And whatever you do to that other person is only going to affect your kid, and that's going to affect you. It's like a circular. I don't know how to. It's like a give and take. It all comes back.
So what would you say is a major key difference? I mean, outside of well, you'll see by the question, between purchasing a home and starting to get into some kind of combination commercial, and property.
A mixed use.
Yeah, mixed use, for example.
The question is, how do you go about acquiring a mixed use property?
Well, in the legal sense, someone normally collects their money and looks for a house and buys that. But in terms of a mixed use, I imagine it's a different mentality and also a different preparation. So can you give me a little insight on that? Because in New York, there's a lot of that.
Well, when you buy a home, you're buying to live in there, right? So your perspective is different. You want to maybe squeeze as much as possible and maybe buy, I mean, not squeeze too much, but buy something that you want to live in, right? So if you have to pay good property tax, good school district, those are things that you want to consider because it's something that hopefully you're staying there at least for 10, 15, 20 years, right? Whereas if it's an investment, your perspective is completely different, right? You're not thinking of high tax areas, good school district. You're looking at more of an investment purpose. Where can I buy something where I'm going to be able to rent? Is it a corner property? Is it on a main road? Right? You're not going to live on a main road. You're going to live a little bit included inside with nice lawn in the backyard.
Location.
Exactly.
Yes.
So investment properties.
You want a lot of ice going through your property for sure.
So again, I know this show might be throughout, but especially in New York, I mean, Long Island, you want to live, you want to do business in Queens and buy investment properties in New York City, just because the property taxes may be lower,
Yeah, that's true.
and more demand of people movement.
Mhm.
Whereas in Long Island, you want to live and comfortably. So there's definitely a different perspective of it.
Mhm. Yeah, it all has to do with where you're looking to invest, the area you're looking to invest. As far as investment, you definitely need a bigger down payment. There's a lot of different ways to go about that. You could do a private money loan. You could do an investors or hard money loan. You could do the bank would still do uh, a loan for it as long as it's more residential than business. So, for instance, the ratio would have to be 1 store, 2 apartments, versus 1 apartment, 2 stores, or 3 stores. Then that would not. Then in that case, you would need some private funding. But if it's within the ratio of like 1 store, 2 apartments, 3 apartments, then that's a good place to start.
And what I've also noticed is that a lot of times in commercial lending, sometimes it's not very good to go to the conventional lenders like Chase or TD Bank, because their cost of funds might be too much. So
Yeah, they definitely.
sometimes it's better to go with you, where you have more private lenders and small equity firms, and then where they're willing to create a portfolio, and they want to have a real estate on their portfolio.
Yeah.
Um, and they have a little bit more say. Where national bank, it's their protocol, right? It's their procedure, and if it doesn't fit within their criteria, then they'll just put it on the side, even though it does make sense economically, you know?
Yeah, so for that sense, I would say build your relationships with smaller local banks. That also helps with people like myself that have, like he said, other outlets for those type of properties. Local smaller banks, you could build a relationship, and they would have different business loans and different options for you that a bigger bank wouldn't have, like a Chase. Obviously, they're a little more cookie cutter. So you want to make sure you build a long-term relationship with somebody that you could say, hey, I'm doing this business. Can I get a loan? And they'll be like, they know you by name, and they'll say, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that they should start building up their resources, and that's what I usually call the friends and family connections that you make
Mhm.
to build your either entrepreneurship or even just getting your properties and stuff like that. Everybody should always have like a real estate friend, a mortgage friend, and a lawyer friend,
Yeah.
right? Because those are going to be the main areas where you have the ability of creating your own personal wealth,
Yes.
on top of the fact that it's also your home and so we in Atlanta, I had a friend who was a real estate person. He sold all 3 of my houses to me.
Mhm.
And then he was a buddy. So it was never like it's a lot easier to deal with the whole conversation about money
Mhm.
and all the inner secrets of your life, that it just smoothens the transaction exponentially. And
Yeah.
if your lawyer knows everything that's going on also, it's great to have a lawyer friend, because otherwise it's just very uncomfortable first time out going to someone. And what I love about, let's say, our environment, Zio and I work together in the mortgage business, and having a lawyer right next door makes it very convenient to just um, have that relationship. It's really the relationship, so that there's a comfort level when you're talking about your finances and what you're building as your future. And it's a lot easier for us to be able to give the best recommendations when we got to know you a little bit more. So a lot of people are very like, oh, I don't want to tell you everything. It's
Yeah.
like, look, you're going to get the best answers when we know a lot more.
Yeah. So definitely be true to yourself when you speak to the professionals. Don't be afraid. This is where you're at. This is where you're starting. This is what you have. They're always looking out for the most part. Just make sure it's somebody that's looking out for your best interest and not their pocket, because then you're gonna have a conflict of interest there. So I like people that look out for the client, because if you're looking out for the client, you're always going to have them as a client.
So here's another quick question. I was curious about where people get maximum bang for the buck for remodeling, in your opinion.
What I've learned, again, I don't have any personal experience because a lot of times I'm too busy working and not spending too much time at home. But I've seen a lot of what is that show?
HGTV.
HGTV, yes. When I had a little more time.
Now, legally, do you trust those shows?
It's entertaining.
Yeah.
Entertaining.
Okay.
Definitely entertaining. Some things that I cannot do, if I watch it, it makes me feel better. From there, I've learned, and I think it's true that we spend most of our time in the kitchen area, and of course, women loves kitchen. And the second thing, I don't understand why, but they also love bathrooms.
Yeah, kitchen and bathrooms.
Kitchen.
They have to be. That's what people like. That's what people look. And the master room.
Because all the places.
All the places. So those are the two things, kitchen with not a family room, but like a eating dinner kitchen area. That's like more of an inviting thing. All other rooms are pretty much just rooms with four walls, right? I mean, it's
all what you put into them and having them spacious. But I would say for the buck, definitely, like he said, kitchen, bathrooms. And as far as getting the loan for that, I would say the line of credit would probably be the best buck, the best way to get that money.
Improve it, yes.
Yeah.
Also, now in Georgia,
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, because we'll overlap a little bit. In Georgia, because I lived in Georgia for about 18, 19, maybe even 20 years. I don't even know. I lost count. It's the kitchen for sure. Definitely the bathroom. But then for the men, it's either going to be the garage where they can kind of build a little workshop, or the theater room.
The men cave.
In New York, there's not a lot of that. Yeah, well, they had. So we used to have a room where it's just a movie theater. The speakers are inside the walls. The wiring is inside the walls. You have a nice big fat screen and then beautiful chairs to line up and enjoy.
But you don't really do that nowadays with the screens that you have that are so huge. You put that in your living room, and then they're not that expensive. So I think movie theaters are a little. I would say.
Well, that's what it is. I mean, you can use a big screen TV or a projector, and then they're inexpensive nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you get a little popcorn machine. So it's very popular in the South.
Yes.
Well, in New York, like a day like today, I mean, basements where I still have to do my basement, which is going to cost me a fortune, and I don't want to start it, but I know it's an investment that I would have to make. But again, if you could, if you do it in a way that it's kind of universal liking to everybody, such as maybe a kitchen, a bathroom, or not a kitchen, but I mean a bar in the basement with a little movie area or a big screen TV, hangout area. That's also a space that in New York, obviously, with the weather, it's a nice place to entertain and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. But definitely the kitchen and the bathrooms, that's top.
So here's a new thing that I found. Some new buildings have been built around my neighborhood, and apartments are being built with bedrooms and no closets. Is that allowed?
Women love closets. You spend.
Is that legal? Is that legally allowed to not have closets in a house?
Well, I think if the plans are approved, and I don't think there's any restriction of not having closets. I mean, if the plans are submitting with the building department and they allowed it.
Yeah, if you had your CO, you're good to go.
But then where do you keep your clothes?
Some people buy the armors and they put their clothes in armors. I mean, that's how they used to do it back in the days. They didn't have closets back in the days. They used to have armors. So some of the places, I guess they're grandfathered. You already have your. It's already like that. That's what it is.
No,
But
but these are
nowadays, women
new. This is
like
new.
the. I'm one that I love shoes. I love clothes. You need space for these things, and that's one thing that people look at when you're purchasing a place. If you're selling your place, that's another added bonus that you can add so that people get attracted to, especially the wife. She's the one that's kind of like going to say yay or nay. So you want to cater to that and have a big closet space, be able to impress the people.
All right, so everybody's just commenting on how it would be how they renovated their kitchen and their price went up significantly during an appraisal.
Yes.
How having a TV room would be very nice. And then in 1890, the house has efficient closets and hallway built-ins, but
Yes.
yeah.
That's good to know.
All right, so where can people find more information about you? I've been scrolling your information down here, but online, where can people find you?
Well, they can email me as well as Trivedi Law Group .com. They can also on Facebook as well. They can contact me.
Very good.
And also, again, I'll give you my cell phone number. You can always text me or WhatsApp me.
I think we have it there.
No, I don't. That's my office phone number. My cell phone is 516-581-8456. So I'm very good with texting and WhatsApp. I love actually doing that more than actually talking on the phone.
Yeah, me too. I'm a big fan.
Wow, that's funny.
I do like voice texting and stuff while I'm walking around, with this piece in my ear. So it's very convenient.
It's definitely
Like I said, I'm involved in the business community. A lot of my clients are business community, growing and doing well, and they need instant contact. I mean, and I like that. This way, I rather protect them and communicate with them than to have a problem where I don't feel like I don't want my clients to get screwed, in the negative sense of it. So I rather just communicate more, but not too much on the voice texting. Let's text first, and then if I need to talk, we'll talk. But again, like you said, you create a relationship with people, and then they don't mind. And again, I can't tell you enough. If you have a mortgage broker or anybody like a banker, you need to have that communication, because just from my personal experience, I can tell you that you feel so confident looking for a home or investment property, knowing that there's a lender out there or a broker out there who's willing to give you that kind of a commitment or a guarantee that you're going to get the loan.
Yeah.
And if you know that, you can go out there and confidently look at a home and make an offer, knowing that you're going to close in about 60 days.
Yes.
I bought a house 3 years ago, from beginning to an end, from October 3rd to like December 29th. We closed on my property, and but you feel confident, So you need to have that. You need to have that, especially for a commercial investment property, because a lot of times, even though you're going to get a loan, because you may not have $2 million to buy a commercial property, you need to have a lender behind you that gives you that guarantee that he will fund it, because a contract deposit will be non-refundable, whether you get a loan or not.
Yes.
There will be no mortgage contingency whatsoever. So
that's one thing. That's one point that I forgot to mention is when you put your down payment, the best place to put it is with your attorney, not the seller's attorney. Because if something happens, at least your attorney has it, and your attorney should be able to look out for you, and have contingencies that protect you in case the deal doesn't happen, so they don't keep your money, like you said.
Well, yeah, you need to put that money in escrow. Yes.
Do you have any more questions?
No more questions, just some great comments. So it says, nice job, everybody. I shared it both in my wall, my own private group. So that's how we get the word out as far as these live shows. It also helps that everybody shares it. So that another thing that people should know that this is being shown both on RETalkTV on Facebook. So make sure you search there for this and more episodes. And then we also have Real Estate Movement on Facebook as well. So that's where I'll be sharing some information relating to real estate.
Yes.
And then we, of course, we got Neal's Facebook page, beautiful page here, where you can communicate a little bit more with them. And there's the call now button is also there, so you can call directly to their office straight from their Facebook page.
Yeah, one thing I like about Neal is he's very down to earth. He's very smooth. He's got patience. I love that because you need to. A lot of the clients that get all like antsy, I said it, and it's good to have a good temper and have patience. You have to have patience with the process because anything can happen. There's so many elements that happen in a transaction. So you need to have patience with yourself. Just be a firm believer that you're gonna make it happen. It's attainable, and who better than you to get this done? So make sure you partner up with an attorney that's got good skills like he does. This patience, and they can educate you because not everybody takes the time like he has. I want to thank you for joining us and taking the time to educate our
absolutely.
Crowd. Yeah,
I greatly appreciate your time as well.
Yeah, and we also have a lot of videos, previous videos that would help you with, like Carlos mentioned at the beginning, with credit, getting to know the down payment, the different options in loans. So we are constantly putting up more videos educate you guys on these transactions. We're going to put more things with the title company, with Harmony lenders. I'm going to bring you guys more interviews in that sense on real estate. So I wanted to thank you so much.
Thank you.
What are some of the other things? So you said investing, right? Real estate, legal license, and what else? That's it?
Pretty much anything to do with business. Even right now I have multiple of labor cases, just again, because it stems out of people doing business, right? So a lot of people buying businesses, but then they also buy a lot of homes as investments. That's something that they want to buy in order to diversify again. Of course, they're buying homes too as their situation is getting better, so they upgrade, right? They move around and stuff. So residential, commercial, liquor licenses, business dealings. But again, everything stems out of people who are always out there doing businesses.
Okay. So business, call Neal. If you have business investments that are commercial, definitely hit him up. Divorces, he doesn't really do divorces.
That's a whole different topic.
Divorces.
No.
But first-time home buyers, you're more than welcome to call us. You have my information as well. Did we put my information, Carlos, for them? Oh, God. My Facebook is, you have RETalkTV. You also have my USA Mortgage Gal, because I do all over the US. And you can certainly give me a call at 631-644-2663. Text, like Neal says, it's my primary way of communicating.
But you don't do WhatsApp as much as texting.
I do WhatsApp sometimes, but it's I get text. I get
a quicker response on text than on WhatsApp.
You did definitely, because the text, it goes right in and I see it right away, and I like text. Definitely text is my preferred, but I do WhatsApp sometimes. I like the video on WhatsApp.
See, I just figured that out in less than.
No, that's interesting. So you use WhatsApp on your business, is that right?
Who, me or
you do.
Oh, me? Yeah, I do. I have a business WhatsApp. And then what I'll do,
because I get a lot of international calls on my WhatsApp.
yes. That's one of the reasons. Also, I mean, I don't get too many international people calling, but that's an easy way of communicating. Yes, outside of U.S. as well.
Yeah, if you're outside of the U.S. and you're buying property in the U.S., that's the best place to put your money, and you could hire somebody like Neal, who's versed in the local market in New York, in the New York area. And what other areas do you cover?
Pretty much. I mean, any investment properties is throughout. I mean, I did a hotel actually, Hilton, in Nebraska. And so again, I mean, in fact, he's on WhatsApp on right now where he wanted to relocate from South Africa, a client of mine, and he relocated himself in New Jersey, but he bought a business in Manhattan. So we were communicating throughout I haven't still seen him. I have not still seen him because we're in the process of actually signing the contract for the business that he's buying in Manhattan. But again, everything is through emails and WhatsApp, and of course you can even do FaceTime, right? Obviously, but again, we just communicate. Communication is the most important thing nowadays.
I will say that I get a lot of business through both a little business on WhatsApp, mostly on the international side. But I will say that Facebook Messenger has been quite a big asset. Integrating that on your Facebook page, very hardcore. People ask for questions 24 hours a day. And you can also incorporate that on your website and make that a very easy way of communication straight from wherever people find you, basically.
Yeah, certainly. That we should have some of the people join in live also, the audience.
That is something that can be done, but I think we've been on for an hour, and I think that might be
no,
next time.
eventually, not this one. Yeah, definitely. This one has been past long its time, but thank you so much, Carlos.
Thank you.
Again, you're an amazing asset for sure. You've done some great things, and thank you. Now,
thank you. Thank
you guys for stopping by, and I look forward to seeing you guys.
All right, guys. So I'm going to sign it off. Thank you guys for joining. Those who've commented, thank you, Anna, Yamada. I'm sorry, Joanna, and those who visited. If you are coming in late, if you're coming after the fact, feel free to leave your comments. I will be looking at the comments. Yamada will also be looking at the comments, and we'll be answering questions as well. What's great is that he is also next door. So if we need to ask questions to Neal, you're able to do so, and we'll be able to get some answers for you. All right, guys. So thank you again for joining. If this helps anyone in your friends and family, share this video. We would love for that because right now real estate is a big major way of investing your money, and friends and family will also be investing, and we'll be able to help you all along the way. I'm Carlos Phoenix. You can find me on Carlos Phoenix and also on Real Estate Movement on Facebook. And you can find Zio on Real Estate Talk TV, also on Facebook. Take care.